How do you know how far to go? Or when you've gone far enough?
People like you that think having a baby is like going shopping.
Science wasn't supposed to let us down.
I know I can give you a boy.
You betrayed me.
You betrayed us.
The Family Man, starring Trevor Eve, Thursday at 9 on BBC One.
Investigating how medics at a hospital trust failed to give breast cancer patients a critical part of their treatment. Panorama on BBC One at 10:15. Now the news with Jane Hill.
Jack Straw and Condoleezza Rice make a surprise visit to Baghdad. They urge the country's politicians to work faster to form a government. A crackdown on knife crime. Mobile scanners are to be introduced at railway stations. The Queen at 80, her portrait by one of Britain's most celebrated photographers. And Hartley's hat-trick takes Hearts into the Scottish Cup final. Good evening. Jack Straw and the US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice have arrived in Baghdad on a surprise two-day visit. They've held a series of meetings with Iraqi leaders to try to resolve the political deadlock that has halted the formation of a government. Andrew North sent this report from Baghdad.
After Blackburn, it's welcome to Baghdad for Condoleezza Rice and Jack Straw. But dressing for the Iraqi capital takes a bit of getting used to. The weather today was not so different to Britain's, though. Torrential rain had grounded helicopters. A high-risk road trip amid heavy security was the only way in. Jack Straw and Condoleezza Rice have come here to the Green Zone in Baghdad with one very simple message. Iraq's politicians have got to speed up efforts to form a new government. And they've been giving that message in person in meeting after meeting. First with the Iraqi president, Jalal Talabani. Then it was to see Ibrahim Jafari, who's the current candidate to be prime minister. But he's seen by many as the main obstacle to progress, because he's refusing to heed growing calls for him to stand down. Some of these calls are coming from within his own Shiite alliance. Leaders of the main party in the alliance were the next stop for Condoleezza Rice and Jack Straw. Finally, they went to see leaders of the Sunni parties. All of them were getting the message that British and American impatience is growing, more than 3 months since the elections. I put it to the Foreign Secretary that this was interference. He rejects that, but says Britain has a right to expect quicker progress.
The United States, United Kingdom are the people who liberated this country. American and British and coalition force blood has been lost in the course of liberty. It's very important now that the Iraqis make progress, and I think we're entitled to say that the loss of American and British coalition lives and the huge amount of money that's been spent here is itself a reason for the Iraqi leaders now to make swift progress.
And in Baghdad, there was another reminder of the price being paid for the US and British intervention here. 2 American soldiers killed in a roadside bomb. Another 4 deaths have been confirmed over the weekend. And there's little hope of the violence diminishing, most believe, as long as Iraq has no government.
And we can talk now to Andrew in Baghdad. Andrew, are we getting any sense that these meetings that Jack Straw and Condoleezza Rice have held are concentrating political minds?
Well, certainly, Jane, the talks between Iraq's politicians have continued tonight, and including many of those that Jack Straw and Condoleezza Rice were talking to during the day. But at the moment, no word of any progress. One significant development, though, is that another member of the main Shiite alliance has come out against their candidate to be Prime Minister, Ibrahim al-Jafari, who was I referred to there. Now, disagreements over him really are at the centre of all this, because many of the other parties in the coalition that is likely to form the government, they want him out. And many have been seeing this visit by Condoleezza Rice and Jack Straw as partly about trying to push things towards easing Ibrahim al-Jafari out. Now, Jack Straw, Condoleezza Rice are denying that. They're saying they're not interfering. But certainly one thing they are saying is there needs to be a Prime Minister very soon.
All right, Andrew North, thank you. Iran claims to have test-fired what it describes as the world's fastest underwater missile. The test was part of an exercise that Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards has been holding in the Gulf and the Arabian Sea since Friday, at a time of increased tensions with the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. Mobile security scanners are to be introduced at railway stations across the UK to try to catch people carrying knives and other weapons. British Transport Police will also have the power to stop and search passengers. Barney Chowdhury reports.
The latest tool in the police's armoury to keep us safe when travelling on trains. Airport-style security scanners have been used for the past 2 months in some London stations to detect knives and other weapons.
We're taking steps to reduce the knife-carrying culture. We believe that if we just take a small number of knives out of the community, it's a good thing. It's about making people aware that we have to deal with this issue.
In fact, the scheme known as Operation Shield has been so successful, it'll now be used across the country. In all, 10,000 people were scanned during the trial. Police arrested 100 people, and they confiscated 48 knives. Sean Bailey works in a community where incidents involving knives are an increasing problem.
It's important to send a message. People have to see that, knives are being looked for. Will it work? It'll stop people carrying knives on the tube. Will it stop them carrying knives anywhere else? Well, I suggest no, and you may need to look at education and other policing measures.
The scanners will work alongside existing security measures, including CCTV cameras, sniffer dogs and police powers to stop and search.
Critics argue that putting thousands of passengers through scanners and stopping and searching them will cause huge problems and delays, especially in peak time. But the police say this zero tolerance means that people carrying knives are less likely to get onto our transport system.
Birmingham New Street will be the first station outside London to use the mobile scanners.
If it's as efficient as it is in airports at the moment, I think it can work.
If you can take the fear factor away and make the trains safer to travel on, then it's got to be a good thing.
And next month, another initiative comes into force, a national amnesty to get even more knives off our streets. Barney Chowdhury, BBC News.
Senior Conservatives say they'll give the Electoral Commission the names of everyone who's loaned money to the party, including those who did so on condition of anonymity. They say the party is determined to help the electoral watchdog in any way it can.
We have made it absolutely clear that we will be open with the Electoral Commission about the terms of these loans, so they can come in and they can look at the books
and will they be able to see all the names themselves, all of the names?
As I understand it, the Electoral Commission will be able to see all of the names. Obviously, there may be those who still wish their names to be confidential in a public sense, but the Electoral Commission will be able to come in and look at the terms of those loans and the names.
Theresa May. Millions of people in the southeast of England are being affected by a hosepipe ban. Folkestone and Dover Water introduced a ban today, and the Thames and Three Valleys water companies introduce theirs tomorrow, as Daniel Bircher reports.
A different approach to water in the garden, reusing what's left over in the kitchen. It all helps to conserve an increasingly precious resource. And for millions of customers in the southeast of England, the usual way of doing things, the hosepipe, is banned. 5 companies in the region have now brought in restrictions, the latest today.
We're hoping that people will be responsible, as they always are, and act to conserve water. And if they do so, then hopefully we'll get through this period without any trouble.
Low reservoir levels, underground aquifers that aren't being replenished. 2 exceptionally dry winters have left concerns about supplies across the southeast, and so there'll be more hosepipe bans.
Recent rainfall has helped, but not much. Thames Water, which supplies this region, delivers 2.8 billion litres of water to its customers every day. 3/4 of that is taken from rivers, either directly or through reservoirs. But at the moment, the river flow here is just 55% of what it should be at this time of year.
Thames Water has been criticised for the amounts still being wasted through leakage. The company says it's spending £500,000 a day fixing that. It too is bringing in restrictions for customers starting tomorrow.
It's just always a shock, isn't it? It's always a shock when, today it's raining and he told us a hosepipe ban. But, if it's got to be done, it's got to be done.
I don't think the right way is to tell private people to save water at home. I would first maybe start with the industry and maybe educate them.
Three Valleys Water will also have hosepipe bans from tomorrow. All this to deal with conditions not seen for a long time.
This is the driest period now for over 70 years. In fact, it's even drier than it was in 1976 or the droughts of 95. So that's why it's so important that we actually get these water efficiency measures in place so that we have enough water for people and the environment this coming summer.
But if summer brings little rain, some companies may consider even tighter restrictions. Daniel Bircher, BBC News.
2 German Second World War bombs weighing £1,000 each have been unearthed during an archaeological dig in Kesgrave in Suffolk. An army bomb disposal team made the explosives safe before they were moved to an isolated area where they were then destroyed in controlled explosions. Pop music history was made tonight when a single reached #1 in the charts solely on computer download sales. Crazy by Gnarls Barkley isn't available in the shops until tomorrow, but people have rushed to download it from the web after it was featured in a television advert. Patrick Bartlett reports.
Which means right now we're making history on Radio 1's chart show. We can confirm that Gnarls Barkley's Crazy has become the first record to reach #1 from download sales alone.
I remember when I lost my mind.
Gnarls Barkley's single Crazy is a chart-topping hit like no other before it. For the past week, the song's been selling fast on websites like Apple's iTunes. It only goes on sale as a CD tomorrow. It's a far cry from the heyday of the vinyl single in the 70s. Then singles represented 20% of record company revenues. But from the 90s, single sales went into sharp decline. Today, they're just 5% of the total music market. But is the internet now turning the tide?
For years we've been reading about the fact that somehow the single is dead. In fact, over the past 2 years, thanks to the download, the singles market has doubled in size. I think we can definitely say, and today proves it with Gnarls Barkley going straight to #1 on the strength of downloads alone, the single is back.
In fact, 2 out of 5 sales of top 40 singles are now downloads. Although the vast majority of albums are still sold as CDs, singles play a key role in promoting them. For the music industry, Gnarls Barkley's achievement tonight marks a watershed. The internet is now an indispensable tool for any band wanting to make it to the top. Patrick Bartlett, BBC News at Radio 1.
Well, coming up here still this evening, more on the new portrait of the Queen. But first, all the day's sports news with Mary Rhodes.
Thanks very much, Jane. Good evening. Hearts have reached the Tennent's Scottish Cup final after beating Edinburgh rivals Hibernian 4-0 at Hampden Park. They'll play giant killers Gretna in the final. Here's Ollie Foster.
The Edinburgh derby in Glasgow. Both sides questioned the Hampden venue for this match, and it appeared that many Hibs fans hadn't bothered to turn up, maybe in protest. Maybe the notorious motorway roadworks between the two cities put them off. But it was one-way traffic on the pitch as well, as their team was beaten all too easily by Hearts. Paul Hartley scored the first. A second from a cute free kick put one foot in the cup final.
A stunning strike.
Hibs hardly helped their cause when Ivan Sproul did this. OK at Murrayfield perhaps, but the referee wasn't standing for it.
Sees red and Hibs.
Hibs keeper then went walkabout, allowing Jankauskas to nip in. And as if it couldn't get any worse for Hibs, Gary Smith was sent off for some shirt pulling, and Hartley stepped up for his hat-trick. The trip home will have seemed a lot longer for those Hibs fans. Hearts, of course, can't wait to get back for next month's final against Gretna. Ollie Foster, BBC News.
Rangers moved within 3 points of second place Hearts in the Scottish Premier League with a 4-1 victory over Dundee United. Well, there were 2 matches in the Barclays Premiership today. Middlesbrough beat Manchester City 1-0 thanks to a goal from Lee Cattermole. It was the teenager's first Premiership goal. And the other game featured the oldest scorer in the history of the Premiership, Teddy Sheringham. The West Ham striker had boots especially made to celebrate his 40th birthday today, but began the game by signing autographs after being named among the substitutes. Well, Sheringham came on after half-time and went close to beating his own record. His effort was well saved, though, by Thomas Myra. And it finished West Ham 0, Charlton 0.
If you'd have asked me, 22 years ago, do you think you're still going to be playing? I'd have taken 10 years at the top, no problem. But, taking it year by year, enjoying it, having a good laugh here. It's a good atmosphere around West Ham. And why give it up when you're enjoying yourself?
Away from football, and Jenson Button is still looking for his first Grand Prix win after failing to take advantage of starting in pole position in Melbourne. His Honda struggled to match the early pace of Renault, and he was down in 5th place when his engine caught fire just 100 metres from the finish line. While defending champion Fernando Alonso won the race, with Kimi Raikkonen second in his McLaren. Ralf Schumacher was third. Oxford overcame difficult conditions to win the 152nd University Boat Race. It's their 4th victory over Cambridge in 5 years. Well, Cambridge had been favourites ahead of the race, but their boat took on a lot of water in the choppy conditions and they started to struggle. Unlike Oxford, they didn't have a pump on board, and the Dark Blues were able to increase their advantage to win comfortably. And finally, Sale have been knocked out of Rugby Union's Heineken Cup by Biarritz at the quarter-final stage. And that's all the sport for me. Jane.
Thanks very much, Mary. Now, a special photographic portrait of the Queen has been unveiled to mark her 80th birthday later this month. It was taken by the celebrated photographer Jane Bown, herself an octogenarian. The portrait is on display at Windsor Castle, along with a series of intimate photos charting the life of the Queen and her family. Our royal correspondent June Kelly reports.
An informal image of the Queen at the start of her birthday month. Jane Bown is the doyen of portrait photographers. Working in her trademark black and white, she shot artists, politicians and rock stars. But this is the first time she's photographed the Queen. It's the newest picture in an exhibition which chronicles the Queen's 80 years. The shots are the work of a range of photographers and reflect both her public and private life.
We've tried to strike a balance between informal family photographs and the more formal and official photographs which relate to the Queen's work as the head of state and head of the Commonwealth.
The first ever picture of the then Princess Elizabeth, taken just 5 weeks after her birth in 1926. And among the pictures is one taken by her father when she was 3.
It's a particularly touching photograph because the princess is actually slightly shorter than the lilies, and it's a photograph that was taken as any father would photograph his young daughter.
Later in the war years with Princess Margaret in the annual royal pantomime at Windsor. 1960 with the infant Prince Andrew. He was the first child in more than 100 years to be born to a reigning monarch. Fast forward a few decades, and here Andrew is the photographer. Still to come is the Queen's official birthday photograph by her former brother-in-law, Lord Snowdon. Like Jane Bown, he's a contemporary of the Queen, although he's only just turned 76. June Kelly, BBC News.
Well, that's it from Mary and me for now. We'll be back with the latest here on BBC One at 10 o'clock. Right now, it's time to join our news teams wherever you are.
Good evening and welcome to Look North. A 20-year-old man has been charged with the murder of Lee Phipps on South Tyneside. The body of Lee, who was 31, was found less than a mile from his home in South Shields on March the 2nd. He'd been stabbed to death. He'd set out that day to take photos in the snow. Scott Trevor Nichols of Borough Road in South Shields has been charged in connection with his murder. He's due to appear before South Tyneside magistrates tomorrow morning. A Darlington man has survived the tour boat sinking in Bahrain. The boat capsized on Thursday with a loss of 58 lives. 15 of those were British. But David Root from Darlington escaped unhurt. He's in Bahrain working for the construction industry. It's understood he phoned his son Andrew, also in Darlington, as soon as he could to let him know he was safe. Campaigners seeking to safeguard the future of Cumbria's 9 cottage hospitals took to the streets, waterways and skies this weekend. A relay rally linking all the hospitals by different modes of transport started in Wigton yesterday. It ended in Millom this afternoon. To football news, and Middlesbrough have recovered from their UEFA Cup defeat on Thursday to beat Manchester City 1-0. A Lee Catamol goal was enough to give Borough the win at Eastlands. And Carlisle were away for their big game at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff for the Football League Trophy final with Swansea. Derek Lacey reports.
Disappointing Well, it was a brave performance by Carlisle United, but League One side Swansea City just shaded the afternoon. Swansea had the best possible start, with United failing to clear twice, and a cross came in from the right, controlled on his chest by Trundle, who volleyed across Westwood for 1-0. Robinson then fired wide, and Carlisle had a goal disallowed for offside, but the equaliser came on 40 minutes when a flick on from Arenalde's long throw found Adam Murray, who nodded home. But it was Akinfenwa who scored the winner on 80 minutes when he fired past Kieran Westwood. A brave effort by the battling Cumbrians, but it just wasn't enough on the day. Final scoreline, Swansea City 2, Carlisle United 1.
Well, around 13,000 Carlisle United supporters made the long journey to Cardiff. Many set off by coach early this morning. Although there was now disappointment, the fans were praised by the Carlisle manager. And he said there was still a huge amount to play for this season.
We'll go home, get on the coach, get ourselves home, have a rest tomorrow, start again on Tuesday, because we've got some big games to look forward to now. This has been a great day out for everybody. Disappointing way for it to finish, but we've still got a lot to play for, and we've got to make sure that we go and grab it with both hands.
Now, yesterday we brought you the news that Gretna's made history by becoming the smallest club ever to get to the Scottish Cup final. Well, today, after Hearts beat Hibernian, it's Hearts that Gretna now have to beat in the final. Chris Story reports now on the rise and rise of Gretna.
Gretna's fairy tale shows no signs of coming to an end just yet. A town of just 3,500 people, they've seen their club rise from non-league football to the final of a Scottish Cup in just 4 years. Kenny Duker struck first on the stroke of half-time, latching on to an attempted back pass from Dundee's Tom McManus to slide home from a tight angle. A second-half penalty from Ryan McGuffey and a known goal from Dundee's Barry Smith ensured the second division side became the first team from the third tier of Scottish football ever to reach the final.
And once we got control of the game again, there was only going to be one winner. Worthy winners. I think they've been incredible all season. Fantastic. Especially when the whole of Gretna's here. You've seen that today as well. It's been absolutely exceptional. Tremendous.
Their opponents in the final on May the 13th will be high-flying Hearts, who dispose of Edinburgh rivals Hibernian this afternoon.
Can't wait. Let's have a look at the weather forecast now. And after the showers of today, the forecast tonight, cloudy at first with light rain at times, but clear spells developing. Tomorrow, bright or sunny spells, but cloudier periods, bringing the risk of a few wintry showers to the coast, mainly dry inland. Heading for 9 Celsius, that's 48 Fahrenheit. Well, that's all from us for today. We're back with breakfast news, but from all the weekend team for now, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
20,000, united in one cause. To attack the coalition forces in Iraq. The insurgents, disparate groups of fighters, or a highly trained military organisation. One journalist had exclusive access to their world. Behind the headlines, behind the propaganda. Face to face with the insurgency. Tonight at 9 on BBC Two.
Good evening. Turning a little bit chillier over the next few days. Winter's not quite finished yet, but I think for most of us tomorrow there'll be more in the way of spring sunshine and not quite so many of the heavy April showers. The downpours we've seen have made for a fairly soggy Sunday across northern England and the Midlands. The wet weather pulling away here through the night. Most places becoming largely dry. A bit fresher than last night, a bit cooler. Temperatures dropping to 5 or 6 degrees across the south. Further north there will be some pockets of frost across Scotland and Northern Ireland. As well as the frost, the showers across northern and western Scotland turning a bit wintry. Most of the snow it has to be set up over the hills, but even at lower levels there could be a bit of sleet and snow for a time. I think the southeast corner of Scotland, though, starting off dry and bright with some sunshine. Most of northern England having a chilly but fine start to the working week. Maybe still a bit more cloud along the North Sea coast. Still perhaps some showers for parts of Lincolnshire, and certainly maybe still some showers into the morning rush hour across East Anglia. I think by and large the southeast will start off dry. Plenty of sunshine across the Midlands, Wales. Sunny spells for Northern Ireland, but here we'll see some showers developing. We'll continue to see those wintry showers across northern and western Scotland, and a few showers developing through the day across northern England and North Wales, but not as many as today, and across many southern areas it will be dry with some spring sunshine. A bit fresher than today, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius, and cold across northern Scotland. A cold start to Tuesday with some frost around. Any showers though few and far between. Some rain returning to northern Britain on Wednesday. Goodbye.
The detective inspector, his anorak, his kite and his ex. Hi. It's a team thing. A new detective series starring Alistair McGowan, Mayo, next on BBC One.
I was devastated when they said I had cancer. But my family kept me going. I had the op. I thought I'd had the right treatment and that was it. Over. It was such a relief. I was ready to live my life again. And then it came back.
Investigating the hospital trust that put patients at risk without telling them. Panorama, the hospital that failed women. Tonight at 10:15 on BBC One.
Who really knows what goes on behind closed doors?
15 years, living with the same man, and I seized the chance to have a bit of fun. It's fine. Fine, punish me for it.
New drama from Jimmy McGovern.
But don't do it by taking a child.
The Street, coming soon on BBC One.
The one to watch tonight. Hot, dry and covering a third of the world's surface. Deserts in Planet Earth at 9 on BBC One. So, Planet Earth coming up on BBC One. Once you've finished your phone call.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. Yeah, listen, I've just